You ever catch yourself assuming someone on your team has hidden motives? You know the feeling. When a PM questions your design decisions and your brain instantly goes, they're just protecting their roadmap, or they don't care about users, they only care about their precious metrics. That's not an insight. That's naive cynicism. And today we're going to unpack that quiet bias that makes collaboration feel like competition. What's up, UX fam? Welcome to another edition of the Cognition Catalog, where every week or so we'll dig into a new cognitive bias and explore how that bias can impact how our team works together and what we can do to ensure we don't get caught up in the pitfalls. Because working with people is hard, and the more insights we have into the human condition make it just a little bit easier. To learn more about naive cynicism, you can find more resources at cognitioncatalog.com. Click the little bell down there so you get notified when a new episode drops, so you never have to worry about falling for any of these biases again. Shout out to this week's sponsor, Mobbin. If you're tired of staring at a blank Figma canvas, Mobbin gives you access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI screens and user flows with a library that grows bigger every week. Kickstart your creativity, streamline your workflow, and level up your design process. Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. For more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. So it starts small, right? A teammate pushes back on your idea. A PM asks a tough question about your research. Somebody questions your design decisions in front of the group. And your brain quietly whispers, they're just trying to protect their roadmap. They don't care about users. They're making this political. That's naive cynicism. It's a cognitive bias that makes us think we're objective and everybody else is driven by hidden motives. It's self-protective, but it's also corrosive. When we assume that others are biased, we stop listening, and suddenly we're no longer solving problems. We're defending territory or defending our own position, and we start managing optics to save face. We're doing everything but collaborating. And this bias doesn't just live in politics or leadership. It shows up in design critiques, roadmap discussions, and sprint reviews. And when it goes unchecked, the first casualty is trust. And that reflex is only natural, but it's important that we try to interrupt that reflex. When a comment stings or a question feels pointed, ask yourself, what's the most generous interpretation of this feedback? It's a simple shift, but it changes everything because collaboration only works when we give each other the benefit of the doubt. So what is naive cynicism? Well, let's dig into it. We tend to believe that other people are more driven by self-interest, politics, or hidden motives than we are. And we assume that our intentions are rational while their intentions are biased. And this bias erodes trust and cooperation, especially in teams, because it frames disagreement as dishonesty rather than a difference in perspective. The roots of naive cynicism trace back to the work of two psychologists, Lee Ross and Emily Pronin. And in the late 90s, Justin Krueger, yes, that Krueger from the Dunning-Kruger effect, and Thomas Gilovich expanded on the idea of naive cynicism in their paper, Naive Cynicism and Everyday Theories of Responsibility Assessment. And they found that people systematically assume others' judgments are more influenced by self-interest and bias than their own. So in their experiments, participants were asked to evaluate the fairness of others' decisions. Now, even when both sides had access to the exact same information, each side believed that they were the more objective party, assuming that the others were skewed by personal motives. This pattern revealed a fundamental asymmetry in human judgment. And that is, we underestimate our own bias and overestimate everyone else's. Later research by Pronin and her colleagues deepened our understanding of this phenomenon. In Objectivity in the Eye of the Beholder, back in 2004, they showed how this illusion of personal objectivity fuels misunderstanding and conflict. Everything from political disagreements to workplace negotiations. And the more we see ourselves as rational truth seekers surrounded by overly biased people, the harder it becomes to find common ground. Now, unlike general skepticism, naive cynicism doesn't question information, it questions the people. It replaces curiosity with suspicion, and it makes cooperation feel risky. In organizational settings, this bias can become self-reinforcing. When we assume that others have hidden agendas, it makes us defensive, which in turn makes us appear untrustworthy to them. Over time, this cycle can turn even well-functioning teams into groups that communicate through guarded language and partial trust. Now, for product teams, naive cynicism can subtly distort communication over time. Designers might assume that engineers are dismissing usability feedback to protect their technical scope. Engineers might assume that designers are prioritizing visual polish over performance. Product managers might believe stakeholders only care about optics and not outcomes. And everybody sees themselves as the practical, rational ones. Everybody else is biased. Now, during planning, a team member who proposes a cautious approach might seem as if they're trying to avoid work, rather than being genuinely concerned about the project's feasibility. When a team celebrates success, naive cynicism might lead some to believe that certain members are taking undue credit or exaggerating their own contributions. In critiques, naive cynicism can cause team members to dismiss constructive criticism. They might interpret it as jealousy or sabotage rather than an effort to help improve the product overall. Leaders can absolutely fall for this bias as well. When leaders assume that team members are acting out of self-interest or thinking that they're seeking credit, avoiding blame, or protecting their own territory, they tend to micromanage or withhold context to stay in control. The irony here is that these behaviors then make teams feel less transparent, and that confirms the leader's original fears. It's a feedback loop of mistrust that weakens both the morale and the quality of the decisions. Now, the ultimate result is less open disagreement and more quiet defensiveness. Ideas get filtered through assumptions about motive, things like they're just saying that to look good in front of leadership, or they're trying to make my work seem less important. Now, once this mindset sets in, collaboration starts to feel political, even when nobody is actually playing politics. There's no Game of Thrones or strategy here. Everybody's just being selfish. Now, sure, some people are self-serving, but most of us are not. Encountering naive cynicism doesn't mean that you have to be extra naive or overly trusting. To counter naive cynicism, you have to adopt earned trust by extending good faith by default and verifying it through openness and dialogue. Trust but verify. The healthiest teams try to find a balance between skepticism and empathy. They question ideas rigorously, but they never assume malintent. So here are a few things that you can do to try to counter naive cynicism. First, recognize the illusion of objectivity. We all think we see clearly, but that's part of the bias. The moment that we start believing we're the only rational ones in the room, we've already likely fallen for naive cynicism. Next, get to know your team. We're less likely to assume malintent when we know the other party well. So use one-on-ones with your team and the first few minutes of meetings to get to know your team on a more personal level to help build trust. Next, assume positive intent until proven otherwise. Now, most people are not being manipulative. Yes, some are, but most are not. They're just operating with different pressures and priorities. Treating feedback or disagreement as dishonesty only shuts down collaboration. Next, make reasoning visible. When you share the why behind your decisions, others don't have to fill in the blanks with cynical assumptions. Transparency helps to build credibility, and it disarms suspicion before it even takes root. And then last, foster a culture of trust and openness. If you're a leader, create an environment where team members feel safe to express their thoughts and ideas without the fear of being judged cynically. Things like regular team building activities, open discussions, these things can strengthen those bonds and reduce the impact of naive cynicism. Well, all right, y'all, that's it for the Cognition Catalog for today. I hope I helped to shed a little bit of light on what naive cynicism is and how we can avoid some of those pitfalls at home and at work. But I'm curious, have you run into any of these issues related to naive cynicism before? How'd you get through it? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. To learn more about naive cynicism, you can find more resources at cognitioncatalog.com and click the little bell down there so you get notified when a new episode drops so you never have to worry about falling for any of these biases again. And if you want to pick up some big, beautiful art prints of some select biases, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/shop. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the promo code YouTube to get 10% off your entire order. And if you have a favorite bias that you want to see in print, let me know. I'd be happy to take requests. Shout out to this week's sponsor one more time. If you're tired of staring at a blank Figma canvas, Mobbin gives you access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI screens and user flows with a library that grows bigger every week. Kickstart your creativity, streamline your workflow, and level up your design process. Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. Help keep the show independent and ad-free. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/support to find out how. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, Zoe, and many others, and help keep the show independent and ad-free. You'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all.